Hello everyone, I'm Carmen, one of the 3D modelers here at Firestorm Studio, and we will be continuing our environment. So for those of you that have tuned in before, you'll know we've been working on this for a while. I probably say that every stream, but bottom line is we'll be continuing to work on it. So if we quickly hide that, we can kind of get an idea of where we're at. I just noticed we've got a little bit of a not a problem here. It is fine. I've just not firstly added an output node, which is floor number one, but floor number two is I've not jumped to the end of the network there. But yeah, bottom line is we've currently got three houses. None of them are done, and we've got a tower. But tower is technically done. Technically, however, it's not quite to the level I would like it to be, in the sense of I do want the ability to change it more than I currently have. As it is currently, I can change each of these segments individually, but I can't change the order. So in other words, if this is a segment, that's a segment, this is a segment, that is a segment, I can't swap between them, which is fine. That's perfectly okay. However, I didn't want it like that. I do want the ability to swap them out. So that is something we'll be taking a look at down the line. I've not figured out a solution for it yet, and that's not going to be the focus for today. And similarly, for the houses, it's mainly because we're not going to go super high raise on these. But yeah, bottom line is it's mainly the roof tiles that I want to be changing. So they're fine as it is, but they're quite boring because they don't get scaled, they don't get rotated, they're just constant, which is quite, frankly, as I said, boring. So ideally, I would figure out how to change the scale and rotation of those, and then we could do the same to the other ones. Have, however, not done that yet. And then we've got a lantern. Now, that all said, last week? Last week Friday, we started on a bridge. Now the bridge is still bare bone basics. We've not got much to work with there. In the sense of I'll quickly bring it up. This is 50 too big, right? Way too big. But we can scale it down the line. Bottom line is it's just a block out. So yeah, we've got this. The end goal will be to get to something like this. Maybe not this exactly, but something inspired by it. I also considered doing something more like this, which is much simpler and would be much quicker. In fact, I would have had it done by now. However, yes, it's pretty, and maybe we can do that one too, but I do want a more detailed one as well. So we're going to be playing with it. We'll see what we get. Maybe we can use this as a base and build upon it. I don't know. We'll decide. We'll decide. Right. So, without further ado, let's quickly go over where we are, so to speak. Where we are. So, let me just quickly change these nodes around. I was planning to organize this between the last stream and this stream. Haven't had a chance, so we could just quickly take a look at things. And by doing a quick organization, we could also take a look at how we got to where we are. So basically, the basis of everything is this box. I've then used the match size to center it. There are multiple ways of centering this. I could have referenced the scale and copied that into the center, which determines where in the world it is. So for example, currently it's zeroed, but I could lift it up if I take the scale, specifically probably the height, and multiply that by 0.5. I could potentially center that, but it's just quicker and easier to use match size. Right. So that's that. Then we've got a cylinder, which is brilliant. We've got a cylinder. So that cylinder is then polyfilled. Now, this is something I quickly touched on Friday, but bottom line is you can add end caps via the cylinder itself. However, You do not get groups on that. And procedural modeling, groups are everything. So I could have done a group and then group by normal direction. Actually, I probably did that in anyway. Huh, I think I did that anyway. But bottom line is, yeah, you can do that. And then the match size is basically just referencing the original box to make sure that it's going basically staying within the box, but being at the upper end of it, just so that it aligns all prettily. Then we've got the group, as I mentioned. This is the group that is just determining which faces are getting selected by normal angle, and then that gets extruded. And then we extrude again to get a little bit more of an interesting shape. And that is merged down, which gives us this, right? From there, we also have a Boolean. Now, I've talked about lines and archways and all of that so many times. But if to quickly summarize that, you basically start with a line, you get normals, you get curve view, um, you shape it using normal direction and basically displace along normal and attribute Bob. You mirror that across, and then you resample it, and join it up. I had another resample in here, but in this case I didn't need it, so I've just avoided that. I can actually delete that. And then basically extrude one side, extrude the other, output it. Happy days, we've got that. That is then transformed because it was way, way, way too small. And that gets subtracted from this, which gives us the basis of our bridge. Now, all of that said, our next focus is going to be further refining this. Firstly, I would like to cut another, no, don't do that, and cut another section out here. Maybe have it more square, possibly, or rounded. I'm not quite sure what I want to do here, but bottom line is I don't want to repeat the shape. Just because I'll add the repetition in another area, I don't want to repeat the same thing over and over and over. Right. Then the next thing I would like to do is I'd like to cut out a section over here probably as well. Now, the alternative to cutting it out would be to actually have the box, so to speak, be much shorter. But honestly, let me think. Do we actually want to do it that way? Because then we could paste copy to point, something along those lines, copy to curves, maybe a fence over here. Choices, choices, choices. You know what? Let's keep it simple. We're cutting it out. Right. So that is one thing we'll be doing, or at least actually multiple things we'll be doing. Right. And the next thing we do want to do is I actually want a frame over here. I don't want this to be plain because that is quite boring. Are we starting with building out the bridge or the archway? Yes, we are. We are indeed. I've not got the solution for my tower yet, so archway it is. No, quite frankly, I've wanted to explore actually finalizing my other models, but I've just not had a chance to play with it. Honestly, the reason I stream is just so I have an excuse to play around with Houdini. Because if I don't stream, I just fill that time with other work. So it's one of those things. But yeah, bottom line is we will be continuing our archway. So, quickly taking a look at things, what are we doing? We are, firstly, I think we're going to build this up from the ground. So, by that I mean we'll start at the bottom and kind of refine each area and then move up the story. Because this is about, yeah, it's about multiple heights. Well, multiple stories high. That was the word I was looking for. Right, so in terms of the bottom floor, I think we're going to cut out a square. So let's start with a box. Will I change my mind about this? Possibly I will. Possibly, but we're starting with it as a base. In terms of scale, we do want it to be wider because we want it to cut down to the ground, ideally. So let's see. That is going to be the X direction, so that's width. We probably want around about 3 times, maybe, its current width, which gives us identical to the current archway. Now the question is, visually speaking, do we want it to be identical or do we want a slight variation to that to make it more interesting? And I think we're going to go wider because having everything the same width is boring. I don't think that's enough. I don't think that's enough. Now that might, the next thing I'm just going to check this. I just want to see whether that's going to make it too narrow. It's probably going to make it too narrow. However, having said that, if we add an arch on the inside, it might still be okay. Potentially. Potentially. Otherwise, we should maybe do like a 4.5. Let's do that. Let's do 4.5. That's just slightly more condensed. Right, so zeroing that out. And the reason for that is if the scale of this ever changes and I change it up here, I don't want this to be completely in the wrong location. So to avoid that, what I will be doing is using a match size to move it off to the side. So let's do a match size, and then that gets plopped into there. And then nothing happens. Of course, nothing happens. We've not given a reference point, right? Now, as it is currently, it's going to get centered in the, it's already centered in the world, so it's going to center it in the middle of the objects. But as it is currently, it's just moving up. We actually don't want it to move up at all. Granted, there's a side note to this. This is obviously not tall enough, but I'm just worried about placement for now. So because I've already determined the width, and the width is the important one in terms of the match size. Right, so we've got that down. What I'd like to do is I don't want it to move up. All right, so that's point number 1. And if I do, maybe I want it to flatten. Don't know what that'll do to the Boolean though, so let's see. No, that's not what I want. Can I do min max? What's that going to give me? Let's see. That gives me that. Can I center it? Yeah, because basically what I'm trying to do is I want the placement to stay relatively the same. However, if I ever change the height of this box, I don't want it to move off center. So we can quickly test that and see that's already what I don't want. I don't want it to do that. So let's do that. Now in theory, if we take a quick, now I want to template this one and then I want to look at that one, right? Let's see. Okay, so that's more what I had in mind. Now, we do want this to be shorter than the archway, but that's a side note. What we'll be doing is centering it. So as it is currently, as I mentioned, it is getting centered vertically, but it is also getting centered from left to right and also, of course, from front to back, which is actually fine. Because if we change the overall width of the, I say width, depth of the box, I do want it to stay centered, so that is all well and good and fine. However, I do want it to move off to the side. Now, I can do a copy and transform to get it to the other side, but I'll probably do a mirror. I'll probably do a mirror. I don't think we're going to be messing with asymmetry on this one. We could, maybe a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay, so now this is obviously front to back, so we're not messing with that one. That gives me that. Can I get it? I do want it to be, just see what this gives me. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to win here because I basically want it in between this location and what was it? not that way around. It was probably min max. No. Center. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what we can do here. Let's do, basically I wanted in between that location and the location where that was clipping through. So that is not an option. It's fine. We can work with it. We can adjust the offset up here and center that. However, if we were then to ever change the width of the original box, we've got a problem. See, it's no longer centered. Now, is that a problem? Probably not. Maybe it is. It's kind of one of those situations where you have to make a choice. Uh, do I want to be able to change the width at the end of this? And if I do, how do I handle the situation? Now, choices. I think I'm going to ignore that problem for now because it might not be a problem. What I'd like the ability to do, however, I want the ability to change the overall scale, but that's fine because that's not going to break everything. I want the ability to change the profile of this archway. So again, that's fine. The fact that I'm somewhat manually placing the specific cube is not going to affect any of that. So the main goals will be achieved. Will everything be achieved? No, not with this current setup. There is a way around it, but it would take a lot more time to figure out. So for the sake of getting some work done, we're going to ignore that problem for now. Actually, I do want that to stay templated. Right. So as I mentioned before, this is two tools. So we actually want, let's try for maybe 3.5. You know what? That's fine. Possibly. No, I don't actually like that. Let's do 3.75. Now we can change this later, but I just want to sort of baseline for what we're going for here. In terms of depth, we can try around about 4. The main goal is just to have this, how do I put it? It's just to have this boolean through this inner area here. Right. So, of course, as I mentioned, we need a boolean. So that is going to be a boolean with subtract. And then this is going to get subtracted from, from that. There we go. Now, as I mentioned, we do want 2 sides to this. So we actually want to mirror this as well. We do want to mirror it. And then the next area of contention is the following. I don't like how square this is. Yes, I wanted it square, but it's too square. So we can change this in multiple ways. I think the easiest is probably going to be a bevel. However, if we were to bevel this as it is currently, we get, let me just quickly get the bevel down. It beveled at the top and the bottom. Now, obviously, we'd round this out further. Now, the big question is, do we want that? Because if we don't want that, we need to look at changing that. So we could do that one of 2 ways. We could either move the box further down, that way the bottom bevel isn't affecting anything, or alternatively, we can specify that it should only bevel the top. Choices. And then the next question is, if we were to keep the bevel at the bottom, do we want a similar look for the inner archway? Because if we do, we obviously need to change the profile of that. So again, we can make the choice. I'm tempted to try it with a slight indent at the bottom, but I don't want it to be this severe. So let's actually take a look at things. Firstly, I'm going to round this out just so it looks a little bit better. Secondly, we're going to play around with the distance a little bit. So I do want that slight rounding, but I don't want it to be that severe. Let me think. I said that, but I actually like how this is looking. Okay, let's get that archway in and then we can see if we want to change it further. Alright, so we are jumping up to the original profile. How I typically do this is I would build in a control at this point, specifically for the profile. That way I don't have to worry about jumping into this network. The problem of jumping into this network is I can no longer see the final output. Um, so let's actually quickly do that. I haven't done that in a while. For those of you that have been following along for a while, you've seen this a million times. Let's just do, it's called Arch Control. Why not? Now, there's multiple ways of implementing controls. My preferred method is with a null. I know it's sometimes considered the more difficult method, but for me, it's actually the easiest. Right, so we are going to go into edit parameter interface, and then I'm going to give it a second to load because it's probably going to pop the menu on the wrong screen, and then it does tend to take a little while. If you guys hear noise in the background, it's my dog. He's unhappy. I don't know why he's unhappy, but he is unhappy. Right, so ramp float, bada bing. We've got that. We are going to call it arch profile. So that is going to be arch profile. I'm going to be lazy about it, and I'm going to add that as a label as well. Right. So that is fine. I think we can just apply this and accept. Now we don't want to lose the profile of our original arch way. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to copy these parameters, and I'm actually going to paste values. That way we keep it. If I was to skip this step, the second I connect the two ramps, it would go to the default linear line down the center type of shape, which is fine, but that's going to make my life more difficult because I actually only want a small change to the original archway. I don't want to change everything. So, brilliant, we've got that down. Now what we need to do is actually copy parameters for this ramp and then pop into here and say paste relative references. You'll see it's locked out here, so I can no longer make changes within this network to the profile. I can still adjust everything else, but for the profile specifically, I can no longer adjust. Which is fine because I can now use my control point. I'm quickly going to give it a red color just so we have something to work with, and then we are going to play around with the profile. So I'm actually going to view this from the front just so I can get a full picture, and I'm going to template it at this point instead, just so I can see whether I'm matching up the shape that I want. Now, firstly, I'm going to be moving the bottom point just a little bit inwards, so I've got space to add another one over here. And then we can try and match this up. Now, I do want this to be slightly higher to sort of line up with that point there. In terms of the actual curve, we want something a little bit sharper potentially. I'm not quite sure. There we go. That's better. It's not quite in the location I want it, but it is better. All right. Let's see. So we technically, we'll play with this a little bit, see what we get. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want it to be more or less what I had in mind. Hello, I don't want to do that. Okay, so let's see. Going to mess with this a little bit, but not too much, because I do think I'll probably change it a little bit down the line, but we'll see. No. Let's grab that one. Also bearing in mind we've got extra topology there, so that's going to make it more difficult. So let's actually increase the divisions to 3. And you see that already matches better. So again, not perfect, but it is closer. So that tells me I'm on the right track with adding a division. So what we're now going to do is going to refine further and try and get a little bit closer to the shape we actually want. Alright. I think that is good enough. Again, not perfect, but just getting an idea of what we're working with. Right, so that is now no longer templated, and that can give us an idea of what we're working with. Now, with what I can see here, the part I already don't like is, I think, firstly, this is too flat, right? So that arch that it's making at the bottom is too flat, but secondly, it's too wide. So it's looking disproportionate. So due to that, what I will be doing is I'm actually going to adjust this bevel and decrease the distance on it by quite a lot. Now that won't sort out our height issue, but it will make it, I don't know, a little bit cleaner. So let's quickly see what it would look like if we match the different sides up. Okay, so that goes that way. That needs to be more or less there. Let's see, maybe round about there. We do want this area to be relatively flat, so I'm hating this already, but okay, we'll work with it. We'll work with it. One of the main issues right now is it doesn't actually line up with the different curves is basically not lining up. So we'll see what we can do about it. I don't want to necessarily spend forever on this, just because watching me play with these, with this graph, so to speak, is not quite the most fun thing to do. Let me quickly undo that. I actually prefer it at that point. Right. Now the big question is again, do we like the fact that that's coming in a little bit, or do we hate it? Because I think I actually hate it. But okay. I wonder if we do something more like that. But now the problem is that box shape is not going to be doing that. Just due to the way that's set up. But I do prefer this type of shape. So let's go perspective view. And then the next thing I'm thinking about is, yes, the shape is more interesting, but the fact that it's not coming forwards as well is sort of ruining the look, and in which case it would be better to actually have it straight down as it originally was. So it is sort of a play around and see what you've got and decide what you like and what you don't like. And I personally think I want this to be flattened out. Right, so we are going to quickly undo this. I do want this to be flat. Right. So having determined that, what I can now do is I can go into the match size and I can actually move this a little bit down. And I can make it taller again. Now that's one approach. The other approach would be to actually group the top edges, so I'm only beveling the top. And we might do that in any case, just to make things a little bit easier. Again, sorry about the dog in the background. He's panting for some reason. I'm not sure what's up with him, but he's not sick or anything. Didn't get me wrong. But he's not happy to be stuck in the room. Right, so let's do it cleanly. We're going to condense the bevel down. Right, so match size, I'm going to 0 this. The less than clean approach would be what I currently have, where I was just moving it down to beneath the bevel. It works, don't get me wrong, it does work. However, if I were to ever want to change the scaling, I would then have to also change the match size, and it becomes a very long process to actually get anything done. And I want to make this as user-friendly to future me, because I can pretty much guarantee I'll be using this network again at some point. So, bearing all of that in mind, we're pivoting. Okay, so we've got this. Now, what are we going to use to group? We are going to use a group. Why not? We're going to group by group. So in terms of what we want to do to determine the top edges, firstly, we do want to change this to edges. Secondly, I think what I'm probably going to do is keep my normals. Let me quickly check. I can bevel a primitive. So if I bevel a primitive, I can make this easier. But okay, let's see. Maybe we will be fine with edges alone. Maybe not. We'll see. So what we do want to be doing is we want to be looking at our group node, and then we want the up direction, and then we can reduce this. I see that works fine. Right. We are going to call this edge group. Why not? Let's do edge group. Why not? So that gets plopped into there. In terms of the poly bevel, we are going to get from group, edge group. There we go. Now you'll notice these corners are no longer beveling. It does not matter because this is just being used as a boolean, and as you can see, these corners don't affect anything. If we were to make this more, well, we could. This is very off track, but we could potentially, that's going to make sweeping it more difficult, but we could have, in theory, adjusted our depth, I think it's this one, and have had the boolean, we just quickly view this, have sort of this indent at the top. So we could have done that. I don't think we are going to, however, so let's keep it as is. Right, so that now gets booleaned, and we are no longer affecting the bottom, which is perfect. We do not want it to affect the bottom. Now, the next thing we want to do is one or two things. Either we can jump ahead and do the second floor, or alternatively, we can start adding sweeps and things to the bottom. Do I know what I want to do there? No, I don't. So let's get our base in. No, I lie. We are going to do the sweep for the reason that the top floor might also have a sweep, and if I've already built the sweep, I'm going to save time because that way I'm not doing things twice. Because then I could just duplicate the network, reconnect it up down to where I want it, and we'll be all well and good. So, bearing all of that in mind, we are going to add sweeps. Now, in order to add the sweep, we actually need a profile because I don't want this to be just a plain cylinder. Our main difficulty that's going to come in is the depth. The depth is going to affect the sweep because we now need a profile that is very elongated. Otherwise, it's going to, how do I put it? It's going to come too much towards the center, and it's just going to intersect weird. So we basically want something that is very narrow. So in terms of what we'll be using for the sweep itself, I'd probably recommend what? A grid. We could also potentially not go quite as long with it or wide with it or whatever, and use a mirror to mirror it across and then merge the center. We could do that. But okay, I'm focusing for half a second here. I think the easiest would either be a grid or a curve. You'll need like a short tunnel of some kind in that case, right? Is it a watchtower on top? It's a thing on top. I don't know what it is. It's like a pretty tower. What can I say? But from what I understand, you can only walk through the bottom, and then you've got this piece here where there's actual fencing, and I'm assuming you walk along here, go upstairs, which we'll be adding, and go inside the tower. So we'll have something. if that answers that question. But yeah, bottom line is we're going for this sort of vibe. Some things I will be changing. For example, I don't like these. Um, it just looks weird and unfinished. And I don't, again, we've got something weird going on here. I don't know what that is. Is that a plant? Is that part of the thing? Um, yeah, we'll be changing things. We're not gonna do a one-to-one, but I want the overall vibe of this. So yeah. Okay, so we're doing a sweep. So we can, again, as I mentioned, we can do this with a grid. I think that's just going to be too much work. So let's do a curve. Now, in terms of what kind of curve, we could do a polygon, but that's going to be very jagged, so I think we're going to skip on that. Let's view it from the front. Why not? We can always adjust the scale down the line. We could do a NURBS curve or a Bezier. I like Bezier curves. What can I say? Let's do a Bezier. We do want the bottom to be flat. So we are going to keep that flat. Actually, I think we're going to mirror it. Are we going to mirror it? Choices. I don't know whether we'll mirror it. If we mirror it, I would prefer to make it on one side of the center of the world. I think we're going to mirror it down to get the width. I just started on the new couple of hours ago. I posted a rough layout work in progress on the Discord. Ooh, let me look. Let me look. Where is it? Wait, before I do this, before I share your work, do I have your permission to share your work on stream? Because I don't want to share it and then you don't want people to see it. But yeah, so slight side note, Firestorm Studio does have a Discord channel. Please do join. We're fun. We talk a lot, we chat a lot. Oftentimes the streamers hang out in the voice chat, which you can join and chat with us about things. We haven't been doing that a lot lately, but it was probably with it being Easter weekend and all. So there is that. Right. So just give me a heads up whether I can share it on stream. If not, well, I'm not going to open it. Up to you. Right. So in terms of the curve, we are going to go. Do I want this side first? Yeah, why not? Now I do want the profile to be shorter on the one side than the other, and we want the shorter side to be the inner portion. So that is something I'm bearing in mind as well. So what we're going to be doing is basically adding these type of indents. Oh yeah, for sure it's all right. Okay, brilliant. I'll take a look in a moment. I'm just going to basically get something in here that is somewhat functional. Maybe I'll adjust this as I play with it and see what it actually looks like in sweep form. But yeah, we're playing with this. I don't want that one there, but okay, we'll connect it up. Just giving us a baseline. New project. Good. Start with you. Ooh, I love these. Are these all modeled in Houdini, or have you done them elsewhere? Because I like them. They look cool. Oh wait, but isn't this that a more detailed version of your original thing, the original sci-fi environment you did, or am I crazy? No, all the models are from Quick Bash. Nah, I was getting so excited. I want to see you model at Houdini. Why not? It'll be fun. I say as I spend how many weeks on my environment. But yeah, I'm excited to see how that evolves. So do keep us up to date on that. All right, so we've got a very ugly curve over here. very, very ugly. So we're actually going to be editing this. Firstly, I'm going to delete that point. Secondly, smooth that a little bit. Don't like that it's not, yeah, it's acting weird. Right. Alright, let's start seeing what we can do with this. I do want that to do that, but I don't want this to go that deep inwards. So, maybe we can flatten that and have this more like that, and then the next point of contention is this portion here. Now that's not quite flat. We can flatten it a little bit more, but yeah, that's side note. I'm modeling the surroundings and brutalist greebles on the pillars and surroundings. Ooh, I'm excited to see that. With the fact that I researched how to do the placement of the greebles, I now want to create greebles. So maybe we can go off track one day and do greebles instead. So I think we're getting closer to something I can work with. I like just switching it over a bit. Don't like that last curve, so this one that goes that way. It's too something. I do want one of these areas to be more flatter. I don't know which one yet. Maybe we make this area the flatter side. Maybe. At which point we need to get something. Now, when I sweep this, I might decide I absolutely hate this. There is a chance of that. We'll see. If this is the last corner, we do want this to be taller than everything else so that it does have a taper inwards. Not quite sure what I want to do here. Right, I'm going to do a quick extrude on this, just to see what I'm actually working with, because it's very difficult to visualize from here. Let's do that. Let's go to perspective. And I'm actually going to view that. No, that's fine. I do like that. I might edit it a little bit, but I do like it. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is probably a resample, because as pretty as this is, that is a lot of polygons. Are you going to sweep this for the second story Boolean? Potentially, but the main goal is to get an archway in the bottom. We could reuse it for the top as well, but I do want it on the bottom. Just to add a little bit of detail, because if we look at this, it's quite boring. It's very boring. So yeah. And then we do want to mirror this down, but okay, let's focus for half a second and reduce our polygons on this. So that's going to be a resample. Let's view it from the front, and I do want to see our edges. And do we want, not quite sure, because this obviously gives us what we want, but it also gives us all these extra edges. I don't actually want even segments though. I just want it where I need it. Let's see, what does that do? Nothing. Does that give us anything to work with? No. I don't want it to be this finicky though. Because that's an insane amount of polygons. We do more like that and smooth the normals on this. But is this actually less points? What? How many points have we got? 55. Because this helps me like not at all if we've got more at this point. Let's quickly void that and view it here. That's 208 and we can halve that because that's getting extruded. So I'll say that the resample actually does help, right? Yeah. It's not brilliant, but it is better. And I wouldn't say satisfied with better, but no, but look at how much we lose our shape. That's awful. How are we going to do this? Because we do want to resample it, but we don't want that result. So let's see. Let's do subdivision. Maintain last run. Maintain, what does that do? Nothing. Create endpoints? No. Maintain segments. That's also going to just even that out. I don't want that. We're going to mess with it till we find something that works. Because I don't want to lose too much detail. But if I were to keep all the detail, we would be let me actually move down to that one, just so I can slowly increase it. To maintain all the detail, we need roughly that many, which is a lot. And that's in fact more than the original curve, if I'm not mistaken. It's slightly less. Minutely less. We've got our problems. The alternative, I wonder. I want to test something. What if we grab all of these? Can I actually grab all of them? Yeah. No, I don't want the handles. I actually want the... Come on, can I grab all of them? Pretty please. Yes. No, I don't want to flip it that side around. Okay, so forward process. If I bring those down, I'm going to make it too short because we have a wide archway, so we need it to be long and therefore it's not going to work. Alternatively, we can bring these guys up. No, I don't want the handle. I actually want to bring these up. Right. See if I can actually select these as I want. I don't want the handles. I want the entire thing. Pretty please. Okay, we're moving them up one by one. It's fine. Now it wants to do both. Of course it wants to do both. Right. We'll see if this works. But I'm going to try it. If it doesn't work, tough. Right, let's do a mirror. And then the mirror needs to be not in that direction. Needs to be probably minus. Right, and then we do want to consolidate seam. Can I? There we go. Brilliant. That gives us that. We actually want to do the resample before this. We're going to get all of these in the center there, which is, that's a lot of points. Does that do anything? Not really. Right, so let's take a look at potentially fixing that little blob at the corner there. Right. So how much are we going to have to increase by? Probably that much. If that gets mirrored, we get this. And then if that gets extruded, what is the poly count? More. How is that more than the original? Well, of course it's more, because it's mirrored, so it's duplicating. But it is actually less because previously it was 200. So if that multiplied, we'd have 400, not 289. Not perfect, but I mean, it's fine. We can probably get rid of that line in the center if we do maybe a dissolve flat edges. Let's try that. Yeah. So that at least gets rid of the line at the bottom, which is an improvement. Let's see what we're at now. 148. Significantly better. Significantly better. Right. So we don't actually need the extrude. The extrude was just to visualize the profile and kind of see where we're going with this. So we can now remove that. In terms of what we'll actually be sweeping, we have got this archway. I would ideally be sweeping the center edge. So in theory, I actually need a second. Can I get a second output from this? Probably not. Oh, that's annoying. Because I technically need it at this point. Because that's already perfectly centered. We've already got the exteriors removed. There's no extrude. So, now what we're going to do, we're going to cheat the system. I'm duplicating this network. Bearing in mind, I'll have to implement a second control for it. It's fine. We can do that down the line. So let's, I think this is the original. No, that's the original. So we want that to be at the end of the network, and this, we actually want to remove the extrudes from. All right. So, no, don't crash. Why are you crashing? Don't die. Okay, it didn't die. We're saving. We are saving. I don't think I've ever done a Houdini stream where Houdini did not crash. Yes, save check, exactly. So it wouldn't be a Houdini. Why are you giving me this error? Honestly, I don't care. We're gonna ignore it. If it does not break, we're gonna ignore it. And it is currently frozen, so it might in fact be breaking, but we'll see. We'll see. Don't do that to me. Pretty please. Okay, so my viewport is frozen. Why is my viewport frozen? Hello. Attempt to access no longer exists in Houdini. Okay, brilliant. Why? Okay, we're gonna close this. We are gonna save and quit, and then we are going to reopen it. We are going to reopen it, and hopefully it doesn't take a million years to reopen, because it does in fact take forever to open. But we're gonna work with it. Giving that a second. Hopefully not too much of a second. Testing my patience here already. Can you guys tell I'm not the most patient of people? I'm not a big fan of Blender. I'm not a big fan of Blender, I won't lie. But one thing it does do correctly is it opens quickly. Right. We've got it. Hopefully, if all goes to plan, our viewport is now functional, and it in fact is. Right, so we do want the transform. We could potentially do a merge and transform only once, but then I have to split it back out again. When it freezes, you can try to go to labs, reset viewport. Very good to know. because that has happened to me before, and the only solution I found is actually restarting the software, which takes forever, let's be honest. It does take forever. So thank you for that. Right, so we will be sweeping. We might want to orient along curve first. We might, but we'll see. So this is going to be the curves, and that's going to be the profile. I wish there was a way to switch these input nodes. That would be brilliant, because sometimes it's just not in the area of the network that I wanted. But okay, we're running with it. Hello, utter chaos. Right. First thing we're doing, orient. And this is facing the wrong way. Also, it looks like our points are joined at the top. But okay, let's reverse cross section first. Just quickly take a look at the points here, and the point, more importantly, the point numbers. 15. Yeah, no, that's 18, and that's 15, and that is overlapping. We've got overlapping points. So what we're going to be doing is jumping back into here. We do have a join. So why is it not actually joining? Let's do, what is that, a fuse? Is it a fuse? We're doing a fuse. 15, 16. Okay, I think that's working. Sorry guys, briefly muted myself because I felt like I was going to sneeze. I thankfully did not sneeze. Right, so the next problem we have is it actually gives us the bottom as well. I don't want that. I do not want that. So let's see. Can I not wrap it? That would be ideal. Brilliant. Let's get rid of the numbers and the points so we can see what we've got. Right, so this is obviously not wide enough in terms of, let me view it. Let me template this so we can actually see what we're working with. This obviously does not go all the way. So, and the other problem I have is this is flipped the wrong way around. We've got our skinny end at the outer portion instead of the inner. So what we're actually going to do probably is we are going to grab this curve and we're actually going to rotate it. So, and why are we rotating? Because I'm quite frankly too lazy to do it any other way. So we are going to rotate it 180. And then we're going to not reverse. So our normals are facing the wrong way, the correct way. And we're running it with it from there. Now, obviously, as I mentioned, this is not the perfect scale. So what we actually want to do is we want this to be taller. So let's scale it by, no, that's translate. Let's try to. The only downside to scaling it this way is we get this result. So potentially, instead of doing that, what we could do, let's set view front. Just quickly see is we could move this up. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to be moving basically this entire thing up. Okay, so that gets resampled, that's fine. Mirrored. And now we do still want it to. Have I moved it too far? I've moved it too far. Okay, well then we're gonna move it back down a little bit. There is probably a better way of doing this, but this is the way I've done it. Can I please move the entire thing? Pretty please. Why are you being a nuisance? Now, this is one area where I don't like Houdini, and this is specifically for moving stuff like this. Because the only thing it wants to do is give me the handles, and I do in fact not want the handles. I want to move it. There we go. Okay. So the highest we can go is there. Right. Brilliant. Let's see what that gives us. In terms of scaling, I have to, I think, zero that back out. Right. Now the end goal is just to not have to scale it too far, because if I have to scale it too far, I'm going to get the situation where, quite honestly, it just stretches too much. So a little scaling is a-okay. A lot of scaling is not okay. So let's transform that and just get that. No, actually, we're going to transform it at this point. Let's see. We can probably get away with 1.5. I'm not actually sure. We'll see. Let's merge it. Let us merge it. Brilliant. That is in fact functional. Now, we want basically the same thing for, what do you call it? For these guys. However, we do not have the same cheat we had before, because this is created with a box and not a line. So I can't just jump back up into the network prior to the extrude and have everything work. So we're going to have to find a different solution for it. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add an edge in the center of this thing. Now, this is getting beveled, so there's the potential that, yeah, it might cause problems. But bottom line is we are going to add another edge. So that is, I think it's going to be this one. Yeah. Now you can already see where our problem is coming in, because that does in fact do that. So I wonder, we do want the match size, but we want everything basically, could duplicate this. I wonder if we change this to actually be primitives, and then in terms of the bevel, we also change that to primitives. And then the big question is it also going to bevel annoyingly the center? Let's see. Let us see. So that'll be this one, I think. It's still doing that. Why are you being annoying? Because that is giving us that. Oh, because I've not specified don't bevel flat edges. I have not specified that. I specified. Okay, ignore flat edges. Okay, brilliant. We've got that working. That is all well and good. Okay. We can work with that. Right. So we've got that. So we basically want to delete both of these and have the edges in the center. That would be the ideal. How are we going to do that? I think the easiest would be to use a group. Probably. So let's do a group. And then we are going to add the source data, but we're also going to add it as the bounding box. Right? Keep within. Can I specify that I want it? Can I do that? No. How annoying. Okay, well that's probably not going to work. Let's see. So, we're running into an issue here where I can't keep my normal direction because I want obviously all those normals, but I don't want the exteriors. Group or subnet? Group or subnet? I'm lost. Explain, please. um, so let's see. We could do. Let's start with the basics. We want the top. We don't want the back and the front. We also want this. So that gives us that. But I actually want the. No, don't do that. Okay, so maybe we flip it that way. Well, aren't you annoying? The software, by the way, just to specify. The software is annoying me. Okay, so I think what we probably, no, do that 0. Okay. We want the top, obviously. We don't want the sides. We do want the sides, actually. Can we do it that way? We can. Okay, so that gives us that. Now we need a way of specifying that I actually don't want the left or the right. So we could restrict it again by bounding box, but I don't particularly want to do that. So edges, you know what? We may be able to. No, that's going to give us that. How annoying. What if we remove this one? That's going to give us this, which is also not what we want. Right, okay, so this is the closest we're going to get. The downside to this is we're still getting 2 edges. And even if I reduce the spread angle, we're now only losing the center one, so we don't actually want that. Right. We're adding a bounding block. And like I said, clearly doing it this step in a subnet. I think some of the lab tools has a better way to calculate normals. Probably, but let's be honest here, I've not done it that way before. So I would struggle. I would struggle. Let's put it that way. Right, so wait. There we go. We've actually got that. But what I do want to do is I want to actually make the depth something like 2. Okay, that works. Right, we've condensed that down, we've got that edge, we can now blast everything out, I hope. Let's do blast. And that is going to be based upon this group. Can I? Why won't it give me the case from group? Right, that gives me edges. Can I curve from edges? That would be ideal. Can I? No, not extract point from curve, really? Curve from edges, that one. And then we can group. That gets blocking there. Brilliant, we don't need a blast. Right, we've got that. I've just realized we're running into a slight issue because we do in fact need the bevel. So let me plop this down into there. I want it before the mirror and before the match size. So what if we plop that down to there? Grab that to go into there, that to go into there. Alright, and then we need a little bit more leeway on the actual normal direction. No, don't scale that. Right, brilliant. We've got that. Curve from edges. No, I don't want to scale that. Right. Brilliant. We've got that functional. I'd still probably argue that this needs to be resampled a bit, but we're gonna run with it. Alright, so what we actually need is our... No, I want to duplicate. There we go. That then gets swept. We might need orient. We might need orient, but let's just keep it at the default for now. I absolutely hate that. Can we resample? Don't break it. Why are you breaking it? Let's see what the points are doing. Let's do subdivision. Oh, hello. We don't want that. What does that do? Huh, I wonder something. I've noticed this before, but sometimes on the corners of bevels, your vertices points aren't fused. I'm not sure of the reason behind this, but the same goes for a standard cube. Sometimes those corner vertices or points aren't fused by default. Not sure why that is. It's something I've encountered before, as I mentioned, and yeah, it's one of those things. So what I'm actually going to do is a quick fuse. We could potentially do something polyline, something. Snap distance. Does that give me something better to work with? No, it does not. How annoying. Okay, but I don't want it to do that. I do actually want subdivision curves. I just don't want it to affect the bottom portion. But okay. Can I get one that has a flat? Probably not. Okay, we'll do it this way. It's fine. It is a nightmare to get this flat though, because I don't want that to look like that. Okay, we're pivoting. We're pivoting. I'm actually going to increase the segment on the bevel. I think that'll be the easiest. So let's do that many. Let's do that. That gets swept. Brilliant. Next area of contention, we have a bottom. We do not want a bottom. So, can we exclude the bottom? Probably not easily. Oh yeah, do you think it's because of not enough points or it's not a high poly full bevel? Not enough points. Just due to the fact that basically if it subdivides evenly, there's nothing holding that corner into place, basically. Just is the way we've built it, so to speak. Right, so we do want the bottom to not be there. So what I'm actually going to do is before that goes into there, let's delete the bottom. No, group. We're doing another group. Right, so this one is also going to be by normals, but we actually want, can we do -1? And then we can drastically reduce that, and this will get blasted, so that goes blast. So that gets plopped into there. We grab the group and then delete selected. Brilliant and pretty. Now, in theory, we should have been able to do a resample without losing our bottom, but we no longer need it because I've actually increased the subdivisions on the original box instead, so we're good on that front. In terms of the fuse, I'm going to try without it. Yeah, I think that's okay. That is okay. So that then gets merged. No, I lied, because this needs to get mirrored. It needs to get mirrored, but I don't want it to go into the Boolean. And we need to match size as well. So we potentially, we're going to need a group. We're going to need a group, I think. Let's see. Yeah, we're going to group it and then we're going to split it. That's probably the easiest way. So this group is going to be sweep. No, not base group. Group. Right. That is going to be a sweep. Brilliant. And this is going to be the Boolean. So that is going to be Boolean. Right. So this will then get merged. I'll do some organization in a second, but yeah, we'll start with this as a base. Let us move these guys down quite a lot, just to give it a little bit of breathing room over here. That goes also down. Plop that into there. That gets match sized. That is all well and good. That gets mirrored, and then we are going to split it. So that is going to get split. Plop that into there. Plop that into there. And then we get that. Which is not quite what we want. Let me see if we actually invert. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Oh, but these are, I don't know. Let me just quickly do that. Boolean. That way. Why aren't you? I've not specified groups. I've not specified groups. So let's do Boolean. Brilliant. I've just not specified which group to split, basically. And then we get that. I'm not sure if I'm crazy about that, actually. I'm not sure if I'm crazy about that. I wonder, where's the original one here? I'm tempted to make this wider. Maybe not that much. Let's try 1.8. No, 1.75. It's so boring in the center though. Do I want to add further detailing? Because let's be honest, this is really boring. Choices, choices, choices. Okay. Right, we are going to do something. I'm not quite sure what yet. We'll be viewing it from a distance. Like maybe that much. But still. It's just, I don't know. It's just boring. Let's do flat shaded for a moment so we can get a better idea. Let's not hyper focus on this little detail for now. I'm going to add some of the other details, and once we've added that, we can always go back and add a more detailed sweep. I am 99% sure that at some point I will be adjusting this, but I don't know whether it's the best choice to adjust it when I've already run into the issue where I've got nothing else there, so of course it looks boring. If you look at the full picture, will it still be boring? Probably not, I'd say. Probably not. Maybe, but probably not. So we'll work with it in a second. What we could also potentially do is play a little bit with the scale of the sweep. So what we could do is apply scale along curve. Let's grab that one. and the other one. Move those. No, but that's scaling uniformly in all directions. I don't want that. That's awful. Okay, no, we're not scaling. Forget I said anything. We're not doing it. Right, so I'm going to focus for half a second and we're going to do the next floor. Will I be jumping back to this? I can guarantee it, I will. Just not right now. So for the second floor, we do want similar. We do want similar, but I want to kind of connect that corner up in a way. So let's, basically I don't want this to be fully square because that would just look odd. Alright, Firestorm, what's the project you're working on? Hello, how are you? Thank you for joining. So we are working on an environment. It's a long process because I am doing it procedurally and I do want the ability to adjust things down the line. But let's quickly hide the current area of focus. So we've got the basics. I've got a tower, I've got 3 houses, none of them are done. None of them are done. But we've got the start of 3 houses, so we've got the start of a tower, and we've got lantern. So I'm currently working on a bridge, and that is combined with a tower. So this portion will be a tower. This is basically archways you can walk under, and then we'll have a bridge you can walk through over here, through the tower, down at the other side, and then the same thing for the top. So that will be the eventual goal. We are winging it. I do not have a set plan for this. We're encouraging creativity. That's the simplest way to put it. I actually want end caps here. Can I get end caps? Can I get end caps? End caps. Red. Hello, that is absolutely awful. Single polygon. Why are you broken? Oh, because there's 2. There's 2. So let me quickly jump here and we can add there. Okay, brilliant. So quick note, this is again, it's a very destructive video really. Workflow because we're working with a lot of booleans. So the topology is not what it should be. We'll be fixing that down the line. It's just not correctly fixed. Right, so we've got that merged, all well and good, brilliant. What we'll now be working on is similar. So we want our box. And we basically want the same edge group as well, along with the bevel, but we will be changing the bevel. Because we now only want 2, because I want sort of a, no, I don't want the edge group. I lied. I do not want that. We want that type of look, basically. Do we want more distance on that? Let's template this. Let's template this. Yeah, we do want this to be more like that. I'm just quickly checking to make sure that it's not clipping through, and I think we're still good. We do also, are you planning on making the texture in cops, by the way? I'm considering it. I've only worked on in cops once, so it's maybe not the best thing to live stream. But I'm going to do one of 2 things. I'm either going to do it in cops or I'm going to do it in Substance Designer. I've got a bit more experience in Substance Designer than I do cops, but choices. I will be rendering in Solaris though. I'm not sure if will I be streaming that? Probably not if I don't have a new PC by then, because my PC will die. Do you sketch out your concept drafts on paper first or just take them into the software? In this case, I'm working from inspiration. That's the best way I can put it. I found a bunch of AI concepts, but I do not want to create a one-to-one. I do want to put my own twist on it. I do sometimes create relatively close to a one-to-one and then change it at a later date to get it closer to my personal vision. However, having said that, with anything other than this environment specifically, I generally either find a concept I like, or I find something similar to what I like and then I draw it out. Just due to the fact that I don't want to spend too much time iterating in 3D. Because it's a lot quicker to actually draw something than it is to make the 3D model for it. It's just one of those things. So generally, it depends, but I would generally advise getting a draft in place first. Um, right. So in terms of this box itself, I want it to be bigger. Let's see. Maybe. Yeah, let's try that. And then we'll need a match size to get it centered in a position. We are going to do it that way. However, I say that, but where is my original match size? Because it's going to be very, very similar to that one in terms of scale. So that is going to go into there, and then we want to move this up. And we can already see that this is probably, no, it's not too big, because I actually want this to cut out this side here, because otherwise how is somebody going to walk over the bridge? So let us zero that out, not 0.0. I'm not certain whether that'll boolean with it over there, but we'll try it. In terms of height, let's play around with these to see. Am I going to have to manually adjust this? It's seriously looking like it. Actually, that is pretty close. Let me scale it a bit. I do want slightly more height. And I do want slightly more width. Not a lot, but a bit. So that's going to be that one. Do I want to connect it up to the tower? No. We're going to leave it like that. But you can see this angle is a little ugly. So let me quickly try. I don't like manually adjusting these, but I do think in this case it's applicable. Maybe like that. Let's give that as a base. And this will get boolean. Cool. Do you scale? Okay, that one I already answered. Never mind. What are we doing? We are doing a boolean. We're doing a boolean, and that is specifically going to be a subtract. You can adjust the parameters of any boolean to subtract. This is just a preset. You can just get a normal boolean. You could just get a normal boolean and basically adjust the parameters in here. But since I know I want to subtract, it's fine like this. So that'll be subtracted from this. And I don't want that template. There we go. We do actually want this to be mirrored though, so let's do a mirror. We are getting there. Now this will then get swept. Do I want this to be maybe a little bit more? Let's connect it to the tower, why not? We're going to connect it to the tower. I might regret it because that angle might then not work out, but we'll see. We'll see. So that is going to be size. In terms of, you might want a little bit more height. Just so that angle is less odd. That's not too bad. Now, obviously this is very rigid. We will not be keeping it that way, because we'll be adding little details. I'll add like a fence here. We'll be adding stairs. We'll be adding a lot of things. Right, so that done. Let's actually go to perspective. Now see, I did say I want this wider, but I don't like what it's doing here because it's actually squishing my tower in and I'm losing a facet. I am losing a facet. I wonder, where's my tower connecting? You know what? I'm actually going to remove this boolean. And this, what's this merge doing? That gives me that. Quickly undo that. That's the arch. Is this actually not getting boolean together? It's just getting merged. Huh. No, we're not going to be doing that. We are going to grab those. Now I need to organize this network. I need to organize this network. We will do that, just not right now. Because organizing networks are quite boring to watch. Right, so we will be now booleaning, but we'll be using intersect because we want to combine these. So this gives me hello. Oh, of course it's doing that. It's doing that because with the tower itself, the tower obviously impacted the height, which is impacting the match size. Right, so we want to quickly revisit this. Let's see what we can do. Let us see what we can do. Can we zero this? Let's see. No. Min and center, maybe. And then we can move that slightly down. No. Probably leave it there. I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, okay. That's better. I do want to move it slightly down, but we're not going to move it that much down. Right, we've got something closer to what we had. Again, we're going to be using intersect, so that's going to be geometry B with geometry A. And that is not what we want. Are we using intersect? Union. We're probably using union, aren't we? We're using union. However, I don't quite like what it's doing there. Or the fact that it's, how are we handling that? We could increase the segments. And rotate it. No. Can I rotate it from here? Probably not. And here I thought I had such a brilliant idea. It could be partly scaling though. But I do prefer this to have 6 sides. Alright, let me think. What if we actually adjusted the scaling on this box to actually be back to there? No, but there's still got that corner. No, don't want the corner. We'll still have to add the stairs going up here. We've still got the slightest line there that I don't want. There we go. You know what? It's fine. It is fine. Right, so we've got that. Is it perfect? No, it's not. But it's functional. Right, so the next thing I want to do is I'm actually going to cut out another box. However, this time we're doing it without the bevel. So that is going to be the same box. And then I'm actually going to keep that one. And then also keep the mirror. No, separate mirror. we are going to duplicate that, and then this all gets also boolean together. So let's grab these ones, and then I'm going to bring them down, and that will get boolean, and that'll be subtract again. So we have got everything merged at this point, but I want to we can try boolean it from this point. Let's try that. That goes into there, and that gets subtracted from that. Right? Now this looks like I just completely destroyed everything. However, we actually just need to adjust the depth to something like, I don't know, 1. Maybe 1.5. No, that's too skinny. 2.5. Yeah, that's about right. And then we have got this little portion where we could potentially add the stairs and all of that. So there is that. For over here, I'm probably not going to be adding stairs, but okay, we could. We could add stairs there. Choices, choices, choices. I'm not sure what I want to do there actually. We could do similar here. And also cut out a portion. We'll make it a little bit more interesting. I've got an idea. I've got an idea because those of you that have been here for the most of the time, you'll know that I was bothered by the fact that these archways are too simple. So if we do similar that we've done here, where we basically cut out a portion, that'll already add a little bit of interest. And depending on what we do to it, we could make it even more interesting. So what I'm actually going to be doing, and we've got quite a cluttered mess here, so hopefully I can find the pieces I need in order to fix things. But yeah, okay, so let's take a quick look. Before I do that, let's just quickly get this a little bit more organized. This is the archway sweep. Now, center arch sweep. Now this can get plopped into subnets, but for now we're not going to do that. This is the center arch boolean. Brilliant. And then moving on, this is the base. All right, that is connected to that, right? So I think I'm probably plopping this into a bigger network, and this is, or bigger thing, and this is going to be, I'll move those off to the side in a second. This is going to be side arches. I'm not going to specify that this is specifically sweeps and the boolean, because those are combined and it's just going to be too cluttered. I know I split it out for the other one, but quite frankly I'm too lazy for this one. Let's be real about it. So that is the top archways boolean, so that goes there. We'll just quickly do a little bit of cleanup. I'm not going to bore you guys with too much cleanup because quite frankly this does take a while, and yeah, it's not the most fun to watch, but we're going to do it just a little bit. Top arch. Brilliant. Why have I added an E there? Don't want an E there. Right, top arch boolean. And then we've got our tower. Now our tower needs a lot of detailing still, as does most of this, but anyway. Right, So I'm going to leave that for now. Let's focus on specifically, yeah, let's start here. Why not? Why not? So we've got this. What we actually want to do is I'm going to duplicate this. Can I duplicate it pretty please? There we go. And then what we could do is one of two things. We can either extrude outwards. We're probably going to do that, but we're going to do it in this network. So what we do want to be doing is, firstly, I want less of a, how do I put this? I want less front and back extrude. So let's do 0.2. I might change this, but let's start with that 0.2. And then we will be maybe 1.5. Let's do 1.5. We're gonna do 1.5. Right, so that is that one. This one is also now 1.5. And then what the next thing we need to do is actually adjust the scale, because as it is currently, it's not gonna work. So let's pop out there. In terms of transform, we technically want to scale a little bit in the height, and we want to scale a little bit in the width. So let's do 0.2. If I do an extrude instead, it will be more interesting. We're doing an extrude instead. Right, so that is going to need a group. Unless we output the side groups. If we output the side groups from the initial extrudes, we could potentially use that. Let's play with it. Let's play with it. So we've got that. Let's grab, we want side group. And we also want this side group. Right, then we do want to do another extrude. So that gets plopped into there, that gets plopped into there, and then we are going to specify that it needs to look at group side. No, what have I done? Just quickly undo that. Alright. And then I'm quickly going to turn on wire shaded just so I can see what it's doing. And then we are going to insert this. Don't do that. I do not want it to do that. Why are you being a menace? Okay, we're not doing it this way. Forget it. Forget it. We're doing it the other way. Right. Don't give me errors, pretty please. I've gotten a profile of errors again. Let's see. Labs, I've been told I can reset report, and that should, in theory, fix it. We'll see. It's... Hello. What are you doing? Okay, that did work. We're saving. We're saving. If you guys are working on stuff, remember to save, because I, quite frankly, forget. So let's do 9. And then give that a second to save, and once that's saved, we'll continue. I think what our aim will be for today is just to get this a little bit more detailed, the specific arch, and then we'll pick it back up on Friday. Right, so what we'll be doing is a group. Of course a group. Why would we use anything else in the group? And that'll go into there. And then, not group combine, just, hello, don't give me errors, please. Let's do group. Group. That'll go into there. I don't actually want the bottom, so we could, let's blast it out. We're gonna blast it out. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually get rid of the bottom. Then I'll worry about the, the rest. Let's do a blast. That goes into there, that goes into there, that goes into, hello, connect. There we go. And then that's going to be group 7. Brilliant. Quick note, if I was ever to actually name these groups, this will no longer be functional because the name has changed. It's something that needs to be fixed at some point. Right. Next group is also going to be by normal angle, but we're doing it slightly differently. So that's going to be keep by normals, but we want technically that one and that one, and then I lie, we don't want that one. We want this one, I think, and then include normals from opposite direction. There we go. Let's call this group insert, why not? I'm not sure why caps lock is on. Quick fix. Okay. Then we can now finally do the poly extrude we wanted to do, and that will be all well and good and pretty. And that'll be insert. No, not extrude. Insert. It's gonna make me delete half, isn't it? I don't want to delete half, but we might have to. We might have to, because this is going to drive me insane. Unless we make it a feature. We're not making it a feature. We're deleting half. Right. First blast. How are we gonna do adjust? Let's see. We're going to grab that direction and this direction. It's okay that it's deleting front and back because we technically don't need it. But if we insert this, it's still going to give us that weirdness. Because it's not going to insert uniformly. But wait, let me quickly undo that. The only reason why it wouldn't insert properly is because there's something unmerged. So that is 16, yeah, there's unmerged points at the center. Let's do a fuse. Not UV fuse, just a fuse. So we're doing a fuse, so that pops into there, that goes to there. And I think, in theory, yes, it's working. It's working. We've got something that is functional. Right, so I want a front grip. And I'm gonna extrude again. And this time I'm going to be extruding the front grip. So that'll be, I might want to override. So let's quickly override groups. I don't want to preserve groups. That way I don't have things messing with each other. And then I need to specify extrude front. That's fine. Now see, this is why I said don't preserve groups. Why? Hello. Okay, we do want side, but I don't want to do that. Okay. Maybe we should delete the front and the back as well. Tempting. Let's do that. Let's do, and we need depth as well, so that'll be that way. No, I don't want that direction. Zero that out. Let's see, can I use this? No, then it'll give me that. How annoying. Right, zero that out. I don't want to do two groups. That's the main issue. We do include normals facing the opposite direction. Ha! It works. Blast. Brilliant. We're making progress. So that's a group, that gets fused, whatever. That gets probably extruded and extruded again. We are, however, getting this thing at the bottom. Do we want to fix that? Do we want to fix that? I don't know. I really don't know what I want to do there, but okay. Let's do a slight insert to make it a little bit more interesting. Not the correct one. Why aren't you actually inserting? Oh, it's okay. It's connecting up there. It's fine. We'll do it without the insert. What we will, however, be doing is adding a bevel, because a bevel will make this more interesting. Bearing in mind that we've got some weirdness going over there at the bottom, and it might affect the bevel. We'll see. I think it might, but okay. Poly bevel. Unless different fault. I'm going to remove this. I just want to see what I actually. I think I'm going to do it this way, because this is at the end of the day a boolean, and this will already void my weirdness. Okay, so let's try that. I've voided the blast, so that means I can void. Don't give me errors, please. I can void those. I do still want to insert group though, and I do still want to fuse. Okay, that's functional. Right. Distance. And then we do want to ignore flat edges because I don't want it beveling all of these. It will bevel the top. Unless we do that, that's fine. Increase the distance, and we do want this to be rounded. Now, we could have potentially add another bevel to this. Why don't you even? Why are you doing that? Let me quickly jump into here. Fixed it. Right, so it was just referencing another group that is within the network. We've got that sorted, I think. No. We already have that turned off. Why is it being a menace? Should we do a group delete first? Group delete. Because it's only doing it on the one side, which tells me there's a group somewhere. All of them. Delete them. They should be gone. Except insert. Okay, so there's a way of doing this, but I'm not going to do it that way. So we're going to do our front, back, this one, that one. That gets extruded, that gets extruded, that gets beveled. Brilliant, we're making progress here. Right, so before the bevel, I'm actually going to do another insert. So this will be output front, and we do want the front group for that, so that is going to be another poly extrude. And then that is going to get insert once I've referred to the actual group. No, not insert, extrude front, actually. Why aren't you doing anything? We've specified extrude front. We're viewing it, but it's doing a whole lot of nothing. Let's see. Poly extrude. I've not got a group, that's why. Brilliant. Got that sorted. No, I don't want to do extrude. I want to take this inwards. We want a slightly different thickness here. Maybe we can, yeah, okay, we're doing that. We're not going to preserve groups. We want to out front again, and then we're doing a last poly. No poly. It should. Hello. That was not what I told you to do. I can just grab it here because I've used it so much. Right. So plop that into there, and then we can do specify group and then distance. Maybe like that, and then do a polybevel all around. I might apply a little bit more. A bit more like that, maybe. I don't know. Right, we are now going to be using this as the actual boolean. However, no, it should be fine. It should be fine. Let's try it. So that is going to get. Got the sweep. That's that. I want to boolean this. Let me just see what it does. I just want to see. That's going to be subtract. So this gets plugged into that. That gets plugged into this. And then we've got that. So let's quickly do a transform and just make it a little bit. Depth is going to be maybe 1.8. And I don't like what it's doing on the bottom, so we'd actually want to move this slightly down. Potentially. If we move it down, we'll have to scale it. So let's do 9. And then we can, in theory, translate down by 0.1 to move it to there, roundabout, and then we can make it taller again to fix the rest. In theory. No, that's depth. Taller. Now you'll notice we're running into a slight issue here where it's doing something weird at the front, and I think that's just due to the depth of it. So let's try 1.75, and that should fix it. Much better. Much better. So that can get, where is this plugging into? That's the arch boolean, so that is getting plugged into there, so we can get rid of that. I think. Hopefully I didn't just break everything. No. We're good. Actually, we're not good. We're not good because of the way the archway is sweeping. Basically, it's sweeping with the curve in the center. We technically want the curve to be either probably on the exterior for this to work 100%. But you know what? I'm not too mad at it. Is it perfect? No. No, it's not perfect. But it is better. Actually, it's hideous. No, wait. Go back. Go back. That is going to be the height. That's the problem. And I suspect it's too short. So let's quickly... No, that's the depth. That is the depth. Let's try 5. 6. There we go. That's already better. So next week we'll fix this interior. Most likely. I think that'll be the best option. So without further ado, thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for hanging out and watching me battle through another Houdini session. I say battle through, I actually love it. So there is that. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. And yeah, that'll be it for today. Bye.